All right. Welcome to our second episode of Play Story Podcast. And in this episode, we're going to do a book talk. Our book talks are where we talk with authors and editors about the work they've done with the press. And for our first book talk, we're going to talk with Rachel Kowert about the Psychgeist series that focuses around pop culture artifacts. Rachel's the executive editor of the whole series, and she also edits some of the specific books. So let's go listen to Rachel and her ideas around Psychgeist.
Hey everyone, this is Drew Davidson. I'm here with Dr. Rachel Kowert for a Play Story Press book talk. And this is a unique one. This is one, kicking off our series talking about the books that we published, and two, talking about a series of books that we're doing with one of our favorite publishing partners, the Psychgeist Media Studios, founded by Rachel Kowert. So we thought this would be a unique chance to have Rachel share, one, a little bit more about herself, and then two, like her vision for why she started she thought it would be worth publishing a series of books around the zeitgeist of popular culture. So, Rachel, tell us all about yourself and why you thought this was a great series.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me. I feel so special to be here on the first one. I'm Rachel. I'm a research psychologist. I study the uses and effects of games. I'm a big nerd and I love all things pop culture. So the inspiration was really what were the kind of books that I would like to read? And there are
Yeah.
some books that kind of touch on the pop culture of games, but there wasn't really a series that looked like how I thought it would look if I were to do it. So I remember reaching out to you and reaching out to Brad at it was
Oh, right.
ACC Press at the time. Now it's Play Story Press, and being like, I have this idea for a series that really takes a psychological lens to looking at the psychology of pop culture. And I remember the exact response from you, Drew, which was, "Yeah, we'll have that." I was like, "Great, great."
Yeah, I thought it was a great idea. And I mean, like building on your background, how do you know, it sort of, it's interesting because it sort of started with games, but it's gotten much broader, which I think is the strength of the series. So how did you think about growing it beyond like your initial sort of like, oh, I love games to pop culture more generally?
It's a good question because honestly, in my original conceptualization of it, I wasn't sure I was going to even include games because, like I said, there
Oh,
were some books
wow.
out there that I thought had touched on games, and I thought, well, what about the broader areas of pop culture, television, film, music? But then I did realize, like, it would not make sense to not have games also in there. But the original
Hmm.
thought was really, how do we look at all of these properties and also transmedia properties? Because The Witcher was the first book; it was kind of our test case,
Yeah.
and we know that that's film, that's books, that's games. It has all of these media forms within the fandom. So it's like we have to obviously touch on all of
Hmm.
those in order to really talk about the world of The Witcher.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, like, I'd be curious just to hear like your 2 cents on like why you think people are so interested, almost psychologically or sociologically, on how pop culture's become such a large part of our lives. You know, or not only just media consumption, but for a lot of people, it's a creative process. We were talking about cosplay before we hit record. You know,
Yes, yes.
and
It's part of who we are. It's part of our identities. It's the media form with which I've see myself in our dreams, our aspirations, our hopes, our fears. We
oh,
really
right.
imprint so much of us in the media that we consume and the fandoms that we love. I'm not sure I can totally pinpoint why I love The Witcher so much. I mean, it might have been Henry Cavill that kind of pushed me into it. I'm not going to lie. But once I started digging deeper, once I started reading the books, right, series resilience was really something special in the way that it's portrayed in the
Mm,
books. And Geralt's non-toxic masculinity, which is something we talk about in the Zeitgeist book on the topic, is really something different that you see in media and isn't like a traditional way that masculinity is represented. And for me, I wanted to know, why is it that way? What does it mean? Does it mean anything? What's interesting about that? And that's what those books are, like putting pen to paper to kind of explore these different themes. Like, what does it mean in series resilience? And how did she get there? And then how can we learn from that? And why do I find it so meaningful when I'm watching it on a screen? Or why am
mhm.
I so infuriated when the show deviates from the books? But that's a different tangent. That's a different tangent.
Yeah, well, like, and I'm thinking about that sort of like transmedia or like cross media type experiences. what do you think of what I like about what you're sort of doing with the series, sort of like in guiding it? I'd be curious about your vision as you think about the next
Mm,
properties, but also the process is it seems like the authors under the guides of the editors of the specific books, as well as yourself, are exploring not only just like the meaning of it, but also sort of uh, like the promises and problematics of pop culture in our lives and something like that.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. The bigger the series gets, the more kind of onus there is on the editors to really demonstrate why that property is something worth devoting an entire book to. I say to them all the time when they're pitching to me, what is unique? Like, I can talk about grief in any of these properties. Like, I don't need another chapter on grief unless there's something unique about it. So, as an example, with the Elder Scrolls, we did the Elder Scrolls this year, edited by Amelia Herbst. She's brilliant. And she was like, it's replayability. Like, this game has been out for ages and people keep going back to it and they keep replaying it. And what is it in the magic of the replayability that we can really explore? But you also talked about the problematic things. We have a book on Taylor Swift also, which has a wonderful chapter about misogyny, written by Dr. Elizabeth Kilmer. So, it's not all what are all the positives or what are just like the core psychological concepts. We also have like individual stories. Like in the Elder Scrolls, there's a chapter by Taria who talks about, as an autistic person playing through the game, what it meant to her and what themes she drew from playing it in the environment. And those are like the real deep, rich narratives that I know are the things that you like, Drew, about like the
Yes.
individual connections, but also there's a universality to that.
Well, you just reminded me. It's hard to like. I don't want to cherry pick because the series is full of stuff. But like I remember being particularly hit because it was such a fun topic. One of the earlier books was the Bluey book on Bluey, and there was those sisters who wrote that essay together, and you're just like, oh my God, that was so powerful and meaningful.
Oh my goodness. I love you brought that up. Bluey is I can't have favorite babies. Bluey, though, I will say, is the longest book. So I do set parameters around length, and I say 12 to 14 chapters is the sweet spot, and Bluey has like 16 or 17 because how can you not? With Bluey, but there's a chapter by Marie Shanley and her sister where the story essentially is her sister watched Bluey and said, you should watch Bluey. And then she watched it. And then it kind of healed this traumatic, relationship and upbringing that these two sisters had. And that book, the Bluey book, I met Dan Brum, who was the brother of the creator of Bluey. He's the audio engineer a couple years ago. And I had brought him the proof copy of the book because that's all I had at the time. And he gave it to his brother, and his brother emailed, the creator of Bluey emailed Dr. Kelly Dunlap, the editor of that book, and said, oh my God, that chapter by the sisters. It was also the
Oh,
one that he
right.
pointed out in the email. Yeah.
I mean, the whole book was good, but that one just is
Yeah.
like, woof.
Very powerful. And perfect
Hmm.
way to encapsulate like why it's interesting or important to talk about pop culture. Because it creates
Yeah.
such meaning in ways that you don't expect. When the Bluey team got together, they were not like, we're gonna write an episode that's gonna really help us get through generational trauma, but it has those repercussions in the way that we see ourselves in these stories.
Well, like building on that, coming from like the authors, like what's the process? Because like, spoiler alert, starting tomorrow, there'll be 15 versions of 15 books in this series out and published.
Oh, wow.
So you're up to 15 books, but it's sort of like, how does it go with like, you have a topic, like you were just mentioning, somebody pitches you an idea or a property, as it were, and then you think about that, and then it goes down and up. How do you think through polishing these up into these nice, cohesive books?
It, it's a process. It's definitely refined over time. My process has refined over. I've learned from earlier mistakes. Essentially, someone will pitch me an idea and say, "I want to do this topic," and if I think it's an interesting topic that I have to know kind of something about it. People have pitched me topics before that are so out of my field of expertise. It's like I can't really fact check anything. Like I don't really know anything about it. Like I don't feel super comfortable with that. So those have to go somewhere else. But and then I say, okay, come up with an outline and a series of topics that chapters could then be about. So I can get a sense of how you're approaching it, how you're thinking about it, what topics or themes are you interested in exploring this piece, and then again focus on what's really unique. And then once they come back to me with that, my advice to the editors is I need you to curate half of the book with authors. So whether that means find people who publish on similar topics, whether that means asking in the editor Discord if anybody wants to contribute, whatever that means, you need to see and make sure there's enough interest that at least 4 to 6 of them right off the bat, you can get someone with subject matter expertise to talk about that topic. And sometimes they curate the whole volume. The Witcher and Taylor Swift, both of those were fully curated ones that I edited. And sometimes it does the public call for papers. So if they get about half, then we'll do a public call for papers, and then they'll have to sift through all those submissions and kind of piece everything together from there. But I really do like having the public call, because I've learned recently, because I keep metrics because I'm a researcher, that 25% of all the authors across all of the titles, it's their first publication. So I love the idea of giving editors a first chance to edit their first books. A lot of editors, it's their first book they've ever edited with their name on the cover by themselves, which is so exciting to like help foster that pipeline. And then for the authors, a lot of them, it's their first publication. So we're all about, bringing new people into the conversation and new ideas and new opinions to the page.
Yeah, it's something I've always appreciated about when we share your calls, when you share with us and we'll share them out. I think that last line is we particularly encourage, new authors, people from under, you've never published before, reach out, sort of thing.
Exactly. It can be intimidating. Like a lot of times I get so many queries like, do I need a PhD? No, you don't need a PhD.
Right.
You just need to have an eye for how to write something, with a bit of a scientific foundation. And the editors are amazing at helping like shepherd that process. We're all really here for, bringing new people into the conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I thought it'd be fun, if you don't mind, just because we know, and share as much or as little as you'd like. The Psychgeist of Pop Culture is a book series within Psychgeist, your sort of media production studio.
Yes.
Do you mind sort of talking about that and your world domination plans?
Oh, I do have a world domination plan. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, Psychgeist started during COVID. We all needed a COVID hobbies. That's where it all began. I decided I wanted to make a YouTube channel because I wanted a hobby during COVID, and I was like, what do I know? I know games and science, so I will make a YouTube channel about games and science. And I committed to making one video a week for a year, which I did do, and then did not do that again because that was too many videos, but I did do it. And I realized how great it was that when someone asked me about violent video games, I could just send them a link instead of repeating myself with the same speech I'd given 100 times before. And I was like, this is utilitarian. I like it. And then, a year into COVID or a year after the YouTube channel started, that's when I pitched the book series. I was like, well, this could be more. These videos are really great and they're really scientific and interesting, but what might be a little more fun? What can we use with the intersection of psychology and science and pop culture? And I was really inspired by the philosophy of series. There's a philosophy of, and they look at things like Umbrella Academy and different things, but from a philosophical lens. But I couldn't really find the psychology lens of it. So that's where the Psychgeist of Pop Culture came. And I also do consulting. That's my day-to-day job. That's what puts food on the table. So now I have all of these different things and a podcast and a newsletter. And I think the book series is the fun wing of the world domination. Because we get to be a little more playful. We get to be a little more silly. I even in the author bios and all the books, I'm always put something funny in there. So Stardew Valley is coming out. It's the last book that's going to be published in 2025. And I said, put who's the person you romance in Stardew? I want to know that. Put that in your author bio. Do something fun and lighthearted. And I love that we get to be a little playful with this work we're producing, even though it is still rooted in science.
Yeah, that's really nice. Cool. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share, either about Psychgeist in general or the Psychgeist of Pop Culture series before we wrap?
Before we wrap, I will say that one of the primary motivations that keeps me going, besides having a wonderful publisher to work with, is two things. One, you and I share the ideology that science shouldn't be behind a paywall. And I love that all of these books are open access. Everyone can read them. Everyone can learn from them. Everyone can enjoy them. And that really drives me to continue to do more, because it's great to put out more information that's freely accessible to people in the world. The second is the joy of helping other people create something that they love that has their name on it. Because I remember the first time I published a book with my name on it. It's a feeling you can't describe. It's very exciting, especially for academics or non-academics alike, to have a book with your name on the cover. And editing can be intimidating. And if nobody is there to shepherd you through it, or if there is a publisher that's a little less fun and open to, experimenting than Play Story Press is, it might be something you never achieve or never have the opportunity to even try, even though you're capable. And so I love that the press and that this series has really given the opportunity for people to do that. Like behind me is MCU, like these two guys who edited MCU, they love MCU. Like there is nothing more exciting to them now that they have a book with Thor's hammer on the front and their name at the bottom. It's very cool to be able to be part of that process.
Oh, and I want to build on that because I think that's a wonderful thought. And I think you would be able to say something very meaningful in this regard as well. Because you were there. We were both in Rochester, New York this past summer when we started pulling together a relationship with the Strong National Museum of Play, where since then it's all come together where they're going to collect all of our publications, which I also feel is like a thrill for authors in general, but I feel like, the authors out of the pop culture get what that means, and they're like so thrilled about that.
Yes, we were at Serious Play, and we went to the Strong Museum of Play, and the section on video games is really moving. I felt very moved being in that space and seeing quotes from people I know on the wall. And they have a little bookshelf, and I did look, and none of my books were there, and I noticed. But now that is changing because the entire series is going to be there, and it's really special. And it's kind of hard to even comprehend that, like, we created something that's going to be archived in the history of games and play. It's very cool. It caused quite a stir on the Psychgeist Discord. People are like, what? Now people want pilgrimages to the museum to go in and visit their books. It is really a thrill. It's really special.
Yeah. I mean, I think it speaks to the quality of the work that we aspire to and also that you all have been delivering. That made it so interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So cool.
Full circle moment.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I know, right? So I think it's wonderful working with you. Really appreciate you stepping up to be our first book talk. And I look forward to talking to you more about the books that you're doing.
More to come. Thank you for having me, Drew.
All right. Yeah, take care.